It's here. The NFL draft. We are 2 weeks away. We have to go through and get an updated top 24 rookie dynasty ranking set out today. Of course, these are always updated on flogfantasy.com. If you ever want to see the updated list, you can find the link in the description. You can find it in the comment section. We will also be updating those on flogfantasy.com the second the NFL draft happens. Not only will I be updating my own rankings the second it happens, but also all your favorite dynasty creators will be on flogfantasy.com. If you want to not only get the instant reaction and instant ranking updates there, but also exclusive live streams, exclusive videos, the whole 9 yards, and a very exciting update coming soon. You can find the link in the description and in the comment section. Use promo code FLOCK when you sign up for flogfantasy.com, and you're going to get 30% off any subscription. And on top of it, yours truly will go through and break down your dynasty team in a podcast or a live stream. But I think that should be it. Let's go ahead and let's dive into this. Numero uno, tier 1 by himself, Bijan Robinson. Now, I understand that this is not how most people have it. I understand I'm going out on a limb. I'm taking a massive risk by putting Bijan Robinson at 1. Now, I did graduate from the University of Texas, so I am a former Longhorn. I know a lot of y'all probably haven't heard of this running back because he's so under the radar, but you got to trust me on this one, okay? He's good. You draft him, and honestly, I think he's good enough to be number 1. Obviously, I'm joking. Everybody knows Bijan's number 1 overall. Going down to tier 2, these will be super flex rankings on flogfantasy.com. You can find our 1 quarterback rankings, of course. We are going to have Bryce Young, as it looks like Bryce Young's now going to be sliding up to being the number 1 quarterback off the board in the NFL draft. The second that you had the Carolina Panthers trade, it looked like that it was most likely going to be CJ Stroud. Well, now it's leaning Bryce Young. Last I checked, I believe they had Bryce Young as like minus 300 as the Vegas favorite to be the number 1 overall pick. So I think we have to have them here. Y'all know my quarterback process. I think if anybody on YouTube tries to come out and tell you, okay, I've solved quarterback evaluation, I know everything, you listen to my quarterback rankings, they're probably lying. I mean, my process, we're looking at NFL draft capital, leveraging NFL scouting departments, the people that can actually go in and look at those quarterbacks at practice, in person, talk to them, figure out exactly the kind of person they are. We leverage that information with their rushing upside, which is going to equal a crap ton of fantasy points if you can put up the rushing yards and rushing touchdowns, and the situation that they're stepping into. So if Young is the number 1 quarterback off the board in the NFL draft, probably going to be the number 1 quarterback off the board in my dynasty rankings. Stroud going to be a 2. Looks like CJ Stroud most likely going pick 2 to the Houston Texans. There's some rumor that you end up having Houston trade up to 1 just to get Bryce Young. Panthers trade down to 2 to get CJ Stroud. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen? Now, at 4, we are going to have Anthony Richardson. With Richardson, looks like he's going to be a top 5 NFL draft pick. Looks like he has all the rushing upside in the world. Now, I know there are a lot of people in the comment section going, oh, Mason, you don't get it. Anthony Richardson is bad. I know best. I know how to evaluate college quarterbacks. Well, why is he going top 5? If that's going to be the case, who knows? Maybe it's a Malik Willis situation. Maybe he falls way further than anybody assumes. And then, of course, we will have to update that immediately. But assuming that he's a top 5 NFL draft pick with all the rushing upside in the world, I'll have him at 4. Now, going down to our next tier, we're going to have Jackson Smith and Jigba at 5. Now, with JSN, I understand that a lot of people are going to want to take him over Anthony Richardson, over Stroud, over Bryce Young. In my mind, in a 12-team Superflex league, it's very difficult to do that with those quarterbacks getting top 5 overall NFL draft capital. Now with JSN, a phenomenal prospect. We were saying that he was the best wide receiver prospect since Jamar Chase last offseason. Now, of course, he doesn't play his junior year, so it's a little more murky. It's hard to call him the best wide receiver prospect since Jamar Chase, but still one hell of a player. The man dominated in the face of top competition at the collegiate level. Better than Wilson, better than Olave in the same offense at a younger age. You've already heard the spiel. Now, going over to 6 and 7, this is where things are getting very interesting. Because if I'm going to be honest with you, 6, I would rank Will Levis if it was my own dynasty rankings, and I was not going to share this with anybody and nobody was going to be drafting off of these. I would look at Will Levis and go back to our quarterback evaluation model and say, okay, well, yes, everybody in the dynasty community, for whatever reason, has convinced themselves that Will Levis is bad. but it looks like he's probably going to be a top 5 to 10 NFL draft pick. He has some rushing upside. So he has some rushing upside. NFL scouting departments believe in him, and he has job security. In my mind, that's someone I want to invest into in a Superflex rookie draft. Now, the reason I'm putting Gibbs at 6 instead is because I think that the probability Jahmyr Gibbs were to fall to pick 8, pick 9 in your rookie draft, slim to none. I don't think it's happening. But based off the hate that I've seen from the community with Will Levis, for whatever reason, I don't really understand it. I think the probability Will Levis were to fall to you to pick 8, pick 9, pick 10, it's actually possible. So I'm going to put Levis at 7 just because I think you could possibly get him at a little bit of a discount, even if I want to put him at 6. Now, going over to our 8th player, I'm going to go Quentin Johnston. I really have no concerns. I understand a lot of people are worried about separation, blah, blah, blah. If we're looking at the metrics model, you are looking at a wide receiver that breaks out as a freshman, dominates the context of his offense, his freshman, sophomore, and junior seasons. He's a plus athlete. He has decent size, and he will be a first-round NFL draft pick. Plus, he declares early for the NFL draft. The man checks pretty much every single box that you could look for from a metrics perspective. Does that mean he is a bulletproof prospect? Does that mean he was as good of a prospect as Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave last year? No, he's not. He's not as good as those guys were. But nonetheless, in my mind, compared to some of the other wide receivers we'll talk about in just one second, because it's very hard to draw too many red flags, I'm fine taking him at 8. I mean, we went from saying that he was overrated at the beginning of the offseason when literally every single NFL draft or mock draft that is had Quentin Johnston as the wide receiver 1. I thought that was crazy. We were screaming that it should have been Jackson Smith-Njigba. Now I think most people understand that. So if anything, I think Johnston's valued where he should be. Now going over to 9, Jordan Addison is a wide receiver that has some traits on his profile that actually look better than Quentin Johnston's. If you were looking at his freshman season breakout, his sophomore year dominance, whereas as sophomore, he wins the Biletnikoff, becoming arguably college football's best wide receiver. Jordan Addison has those extremely strong marks on his resume. Now, unlike Quentin Johnston, there are a few red flags that you have. You have the size concern. I understand a lot of people are saying, okay, Mason, Devonta Smith doesn't weigh anything. Devonta Smith is super skinny. Yes, he's an outlier. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're not chasing outliers here. Devonta Smith was also like the best college wide receiver, of all time. So don't chase that outlier. So you have the size concern and also the fact that he got much worse his junior season. If you're looking at the percentage of his collegiate offense that he accounted for, not that pretty his junior year if we're going to compare it to his sophomore season. But with that being said, like we said, he has very strong marks on his profile. He probably will be a round 1 NFL draft pick as well. So I think with Johnston, Addison, I could easily see these guys being bust 2 years from now. If they turn into, say, Jalen Reagor, if they turn into Laquan Treadwell, would that be the most surprising thing in the world? Probably not. It's possible, but it's also possible that I could see these guys turning into low-end wide receiver 1s in Dynasty. So I'm completely fine taking him at 8, taking him at 9. Now our guy at 10, Zach Charbonnet, if you really wanted a running back, I think you could take him over these wide receivers. Like we said, I think these wide receivers could flame out. We don't really know just yet. With Charbonnet, this is a running back that most likely is going to go on day 2. He's either going to be a round 2 or round 3 NFL draft pick. If he falls to day 3, I'll tell you right now, he's going to fall down these rankings, but most likely won't happen. He has the size we look for. He is a good enough athlete, and he was a phenomenal pass catcher this past season at UCLA. So if you have the size to be a 3-down player, you're a good enough athlete, you're getting the NFL draft capital, and you can catch the ball to stay on the field on 3rd downs. From a fantasy football perspective, we don't look for too many other things than that. Of course, it would have been nice if he was not just an adequate athlete, if he was an elite athlete, sure, it would have been great. It would have been great if he declared early out of UCLA. It'd be great if he was a 1st-round NFL draft pick instead of a 2nd. But it would also be great if I had a Ferrari parked in front of the house instead of the 10-year-old car that I'm driving now. Of course, you don't always get exactly what you're looking for, but still got to look at the bright side. Now, going down to number 11, we're going to be looking at Zay Flowers. There's been a big push as of late to have Zay Flowers ahead of Jordan Addison, to have Zay Flowers ahead of Quentin Johnston. I just can't do it. If you're looking at Zay Flowers, the positives on the profile, the man continuously improved from a market share perspective from his freshman to sophomore to junior to senior year. He improved every single season. With Zay Flowers, he's a great athlete. With Zay Flowers, he's not necessarily big, but he's not as light as Jordan Addison. So there are some definite positives on his profile. But if you were looking at the market share numbers for Zay Flowers, his junior season compared to what you had for the best year of Quentin Johnston in his own offense, Jordan Addison in his own offense, those guys were significantly better players at a younger age than Zay Flowers was. Now, of course, Zay Flowers stays the extra year in college. I don't have to go through and describe exactly how negative staying that fourth year in school historically has been for wide receivers, their hit rate and their upside at the next level. The majority of times, if a player is going to turn into a wide receiver one in Dynasty, that player only stays 3 years in college. Like, let me go ahead. Let me pull up flockfantasy.com right now, just so I can look at the overall top 12 wide receivers that we have in Dynasty. I'm not even going to look at my own exact rankings. I'll look at the overall rankings of the site. Jefferson, 3 years in college. Chase, 3 years in college. Lamb, 3 years in college. A.J. Brown, 3 years in college. Jalen Waddle stayed 4, but with Jalen Waddle, he was at school with Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Devonta Smith. Like, give the man a break. It's a completely different situation than playing at Boston College. Garrett Wilson, 3 years in college. T. Higgins, 3 years in college. Chris Olave, 4 years, but give the man a break. He was at school with Jackson Smith-Njigba, Garrett Wilson, and Jameson Williams. I think that makes sense. Different than Boston College. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, 3-year player. Drake London, 3-year player. DK Metcalf, 3-year player. JSN, 3-year player. If you look at the historical hit rates, you want that player declaring after their junior season. If they have to go back their senior year to stat pile, it's usually not the best spot. Now, dropping down a tier, we're going to have Michael Mayer here at 12. Very high floor player. You don't love investing in a rookie tight ends because generally they're not going to do anything. And the example I always give saying don't invest into rookie season tight ends is if you're looking at Pat Freiermuth, right? Freiermuth is giving you everything you would ever want from a year 1 and year 2 tight ends. So I would make an argument that he has been one of the biggest hits if you have been in the market for drafting rookie tight ends over the past 5-6 seasons. Like, the man goes out, year 1 is immediately impactful in fantasy. And then going from year 1 to year 2, he improves from 31 receiving yards per game to 46 receiving yards per game. His second season in the NFL, which very rarely ever happens. And the man's still not worth the first round pick. Like, go try to sell Pat Freiermuth for a 2024 first. It's not happening. So, like, Michael Mayer is like best case scenario as he kind of turns into Pat Freiermuth here. Should we try to make an argument that he needs to be a top 10, top 8 pick, even if he's a very good tight end prospect? Probably not. In reality, the only real reason we have him here at 12 is the rest of the class is very weak. So going over to our next guy, we're going to be looking at Jalen Hyatt. I mean, with Jalen Hyatt here, is a wide receiver that I think could be impactful from a real life NFL standpoint. I think he's probably going to be a late round 1, early round 2 NFL draft pick. He has the speed that NFL teams look for to stretch defenses to command safety attention. But if we are going to be looking at Jalen Hyatt, the primary issue is it's a wide receiver that doesn't profile to be a target hog. This is a wide receiver that profiles to be that decoy in the offense where other players underneath can actually go through and command volume. And obviously, the scheme in Tennessee is nothing like what you're going to see with NFL defenses. Based on the draft capital, based on the speed, based on him being able to get on the field immediately, you have to rank him ahead of some of these other names, but still at the same time, I mean, he's definitely not in the same caliber of any of the wide receivers ahead of him. Now, dropping down to our next guys, we're going to have Josh Downs, 14. With Downs, very similar to what we were talking about with Addison. You have size concerns. I mean, the primary difference that you're going to have with Josh Downs versus Jordan Addison is Addison's a lock to be a round 1 NFL draft pick. Josh Downs, you're crossing your fingers that he goes round 2. He probably goes round 3. With Josh Downs, this is a wide receiver that you're not going to be able to move all over the field. You're really kind of hoping that he turns into what you wanted David Bell to be last season. Of course, he is a little more athletic than David Bell. I would make an argument that if you're looking at Josh Downs and David Bell as just prospects overall, keep in mind, David Bell had a very strong metric profile similar to Josh Downs in terms of breaking out at an incredibly early age, dominating the target share in his offense, and declaring early for the NFL draft. You really liked the profile. I would say Downs is a more athletic David Bell, runs a 4.48 compared to David Bell running slower than a 4.60. Of course, if you run slower than a 4.60, you're pretty much done. But at the same time, David Bell, a little bit bigger. I still like Josh Downs, but I do want to be fair with the limitations he has on his profile. Now, 15, we're going to go Roschon Johnson. This is a player that's been trending upwards in NFL mock drafts. It looks more and more likely that Roschon is going to be a day 2 NFL draft pick. The man has the size to be a 3-down back. He is an okay enough athlete. And when he was given the ability to catch the ball, he was able to do so at Texas. Now, of course, the issue is, okay, well, you played with Bijan Robinson, so we really never got to see you. But when given the opportunity, he did catch the ball. And if Bijan was not in that offense, I would be confident in saying that his 4 to 5% college target share that Roschon had would probably go up to 8-9%, and he would check that pass catching box for us. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt for Roschon Johnson here at 15, because I think his ceiling is going to be higher than what we're going to have with our next guy. Devin Achane at 16. The issue is, yes, you're probably going to be a borderline round 2, round 3 NFL draft pick. Yes, you are an elite level athlete. Yes, you are highly efficient at Texas A&M. But first off, you go to Texas A&M showing me that your decision-making ability is questionable to say the least, especially if you would have had the option to go to a real school like the University of Texas. There maybe we could give you a little leeway. I don't know. You're going to Texas A&M. We have some real concerns there. The man does run a 4.32. I think, all jokes aside, he'll be a fine real-life NFL running back. But from a fantasy football perspective, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for him to go out there and ever see 15-plus touches a game. Now, I understand in college, yes, this is a running back that did handle a large workload. In college, if you're looking at this past season, in 10 games, the man had about 240 total touches. Beautiful. But to be fair, it's a completely different story when you're going up against NFL defensive linemen, NFL linebackers. You weigh 188 pounds. If we go through and look for historical comparables of players that weigh 188 pounds and try to find someone that checks out, you have to go back 20 years. And if you have to go back 20 years, I think you're just kind of trying to make something happen that's most likely not going to. Now, our next guy will be Dalton Kincaid, 17. With Kincaid, he's just essentially a worse version of what you have with Michael Mayer in terms of us not really wanting to draft rookie tight ends. With Kincaid, he's fallen down the draft board just a little bit over the past few months. This is a player that we don't have the official testing numbers of. He's a little bit of an older tight end. The man's going to be like 24 his rookie season. It's kind of is what it is. Now, Hendon Hooker at 18 will be our next guy. Now, with Hooker, this is a quarterback that will most likely never be anything from a real life perspective, right? I think that if you are coming out here and saying, okay, he's going to be a great real life quarterback, you're probably fooling yourself. But if he is able to be a spot starter, if he's able to start for, say, 10-ish games, his first and second season, given the rushing upside that he has, I believe that this is a player that should score fantasy points, okay? I don't know if he'll be good from a real life perspective, but if you're looking at these rushing quarterbacks, it's exactly why I was drafting Jalen Hurts over and over and over again back in his rookie draft class. If we were looking at Jalen Hurts, he was going in the middle of the second round of 12-team Superflex rookie drafts, and I was saying, I have no idea if this guy's going to be any good. I have no idea if this guy's ever going to get a shot, but what I do know is if somehow he is given the ability to start, he will be good in fantasy because his rushing upside. Of course, I never knew how good he would be, but of course, we got very lucky there, and I don't expect Hendon Hooker to be Jalen Hurts. Of course not. But hell, you take rushing quarterbacks that are round 2 NFL draft picks, generally in the second round. That's what we're going for. Now, 19, Darnell Washington, kind of same thing as Dalton Kincaid. I mean, with Kincaid, I'm more confident that he goes round 1 in the NFL draft. Washington, a better athlete. I mean, maybe you make the argument that he has more upside in the long term. I mean, he had some highlight grabs at the combine. One big issue, however, and this is something that I kind of had to learn the hard way back in 2017, is in 2017, we were looking at like David Njoku and we were saying he's so young, he's this athletic, he's only going to get better and better and better and better. If that's the profile of the guy, why don't we just get him when he's David Njoku's age, when he's actually stepping into his prime and about to score fantasy points? They're drafting him as a rookie and then seeing his value decline as he does nothing on our bench. So in general, I think a player that has a lot of long-term upside, just like what exactly do we have? Now, our next tier of players, let's just label, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Tyjae Spears, Tank Bigsby, Izzy, and Zach Evans. Now let's go running back by running back here. Talk about the positives, talk about the negatives. Tyjae Spears, an okay athlete. Tyjae Spears, a pretty good pass catcher. Tyjae Spears, not great size, but not horrible size. Pretty much not good size. But one thing that he does have is most likely day 2 NFL draft capital. If I'm going to NFL mock draft database right now, they have him as pick 80. So if we're looking at him in comparison to Tank Bigsby, Zach Evans, Izzy, he is more likely than any of those guys to be locked into a day 2 NFL draft pick, more likely than any of those guys to actually project to see volume early on in his NFL career. So we will have him at the top of this tier, even if he has some serious limitations with his profile. Now going over to Tank Bigsby, this is a running back that caught the ball his final season in college. We like to see that behind a horrendous offensive line. So it's kind of a Cam Akers situation. We don't really know exactly what we have. He's a pretty good athlete. He's young, but the thing is, we don't know for sure if he's going to be a day 2 NFL draft pick. Like if we could say Tank Bigsby and Tyjae Spears had the same draft capital, give me Bigsby, to be honest. But based on what NFL mock drafters are putting out as of today, it looks like Bigsby has a shot to fall to round 5, round 6, and that's a much larger hurdle to overcome to actually get your shot at the NFL level to show what you can do compared to if you're looking at maybe Tyjae Spears as a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Now, our next guy will be Izzy, someone who has skyrocketed up some draft boards here. And if you're looking at it, it makes sense why. I mean, it's a running back that's an okay pass catcher. It's a running back that is a phenomenal athlete. It's a running back that has very good size. So he checks a lot of boxes. Now, the one thing is very similar to Tank Bigsby. He could easily go day 3 of the NFL draft. You go day 3 of the NFL draft, it's very difficult for you to get opportunity, very difficult for you to get a fair shot. But still, I mean, this is kind of the unknown tier, okay? So I think once we actually have the NFL draft, we know the capital for sure. We know the landing spots for these running backs as well. You'll have a few of these players skyrocketing up these rankings. I could see a player or two in this tier getting up to, I mean, overall 13, overall 14. Like they can skyrocket up here, but they can also fall a decent amount. So let's keep that in mind. Zach Evans is our next guy. I understand that Zach Evans has a little bit of a cult following. We've had a lot of people in live streams telling us how good Zach Evans is. I was optimistic about him, to be honest. I love the running backs that had a ton of high school pedigree, a 5-star prospect. I mean, doesn't ever really get the opportunity in college, but does that matter too much? Honestly, not necessarily. But the issue is with Zach Evans is at the combine, he was smaller than we thought he was going to be. Maybe it's a Dameon Pierce type situation where he didn't catch the ball, but it was because the team didn't use him enough. So if they used him enough, then the target share would have been high enough. Give him the benefit of the doubt, say that he can catch the ball. But he was a worse athlete than we initially thought, and he was smaller than we initially thought. So it's hard to be as in on Zach Evans as I want to be. Now, dropping down a tier, we're going to give a shout out to Sean Tucker with Sean Tucker 24. This is a running back that checks so many boxes. Great pass catcher. Good size. Can be a 3-down player. And at the same time, an elite athlete. Now, what does he not check? Why is he so low on this list? it looks like at this point, he really does not have a chance to be a day 2 NFL draft pick. Because I like the profile, because I like a lot of the boxes that he does check, I will probably be willing to go out of our way and to draft him, even if he is a day 3 guy in this range. It's what I'm currently assuming, that he's a day 3 guy because I like all those boxes, and we can maybe really hope that we hit on like the next Tyler Algier or so. But I mean, I just really want the NFL to actually give our guy a shot. Now, Marvin Mims going to be our last wide receiver here. With Mims, similar to Zach Evans, similar to Sean Tucker, similar to Tank Bigsby. I mean, a player that people were very excited about a few years back. With Marvin Mims, however, it kind of seems like he's a worse version of what you maybe have with Jalen Hyatt, where if you're looking at Mims, going to be that field stretching option, possibly goes day 2 of the NFL draft so he can stretch NFL defenses. Maybe he's like a Tyquan Thornton, a Dwayne Eskridge, a Tutu Atwell type, for instance, player that just goes higher in the NFL draft than Dynasty players are on him for the right reasons. But this is someone that broke out at an extremely early age as a freshman. He's a good enough athlete, probably gets NFL draft capital, declared early for the NFL draft. The issue is we never saw the top dominance, which he looked like he was on track for after his freshman season at OU. And similar to the same concerns that we have with maybe a Devin Achane, you have to worry about his decision-making ability if he decided to go to OU rather than a real school like the University of Texas. But I think that's all we have for this. Again, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, you better be going down there. You better be dropping a like. Subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And if you want to get our rankings the second of the NFL Draft as they update, make sure you go ahead and sign up for flogfantasy.com with promo code FLOG. 30% off any package. And with the Mother Flocker package and promo code FLOG, yours truly will go through and make a podcast breaking down your Dynasty team. But thank you again. I really appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day and really hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow.